welcome to the third webinar Q&A session with Swarm. We've been doing a series of these the last few weeks where we highlight an investment opportunity on the platform. And today, as we just heard, we've got Andrew and Matt from Property Coin, one of the real estate investment opportunities that recently listed on Swarm, and one of the more successful ones. We're on Zoom. Anyone on Zoom, you can pose questions in the little Q&A panel there. There'll be written questions, and we'll try and get to those. You can also raise your hand using the little hand icon there if you want to talk, and we'll prompt you to ask your questions. And if you're on Facebook, please type your questions in the comments, and we'll try and juggle all these streaming locations and hopefully get to everyone. We've got plenty of time. Just to talk about the format, the guys are going to run through a short deck explaining how Property Coin works and what investors can expect from it. And then we'll open up to some questions, and hopefully we'll all be a little smarter after this session and learn a thing or two. So I'll hand over to you guys, Andrew and Matt. If you want to start share your deck there, and
yeah, I'll first off, thank you so much, Sam and team at Swarm, for having us on. We're super excited to be partnering with you guys, and the community is a vibrant one, as Sam and I were discussing before this. We're part of the Telegram community and on Facebook, so if anybody has any questions, during or after this, please feel free to reach out to either Matt or myself. But as you mentioned, we are Property Coin. Matt and I are 2/3 of the founding team of Aperture, which is Property Coin's parent. Our third partner, Rudy, he's actually out in the field today scouting some new markets and investments for us, so he was unfortunately unable to make it, but sends his best to the community, and again, thanks to Sam and team. So a little bit about Aperture, because that's important, and that's really what the main business is, before we delve into the specifics on Property Coin. But I'll share my screen here, and here we go. Sam, can you see that?
we can. Yes, I can see that well.
So Aperture was formed in late 2016 by myself, Matt, and Rudy. We are Matt and I have actually worked together since 2005, first as investment bankers focused on the residential real estate market in the United States, and then as co-heads of capital markets of one of the largest fix and flip operators in the country. And then we started Aperture in 2016, and we actually had worked with Rudy at that last company, and the three of us had some really interesting and unique ideas about sourcing assets, how to purchase, and how to make the process of buying and selling distressed residential real estate much more efficient in the United States, and wanted to build a large-scale company because there really isn't a big market for this in terms of a nationally focused operator. There's really quite few in the United States.
Just to jump in,
yeah.
Andrew said fix and flip, and I want to be sure everybody understands what that means. What we do and what we have quite a lot of experience in doing, over 3,000 homes in our careers, is buying distressed properties where we make value-added repairs and then we resell it to someone, a cleaned up house. And a lot of times, that's cosmetic work. Sometimes it's material improvements. Sometimes the homes had a form of disrepair that was so severe that it couldn't get financing. So we've literally taken boarded up homes, fixed them, and sold them to end user occupants, which is, increases availability of affordable housing. B, the neighbors are happy, and C is a way for us to make money. So that's what our core business does, and we have a lot of experience in that space.
Yeah, and so the thesis for Aperture is we're using data and technology and unique and innovative ways of sourcing assets to acquire attractive investment opportunities in the distressed residential real estate space. And then we also make loans to other smaller fix and flippers, as they're called in the U.S. That business is a great one. It's very complementary to the actual business of taking down a proprietary trade in the fix and flip space. And there's a lot of synergies that happen between those two businesses. You get customer referrals, you get loan referrals, you get business referrals. It's something that we've done in the past. We were part of the team that founded one of the largest operators in this space before coming here, and we know how to run that business at scale as well. So, one of the things that we like to say about Aperture and Property Coin is that we are an existing business. We are an operating company already. We have 15 people on staff. Our team is highly, highly experienced. As Matt mentioned, our team estimates they've flipped about 3,000 houses in their careers. We've written over $10 billion worth of mortgage loans. Matt and I have issued probably over 150 billion worth of structured securities, asset-backed securities.
Just like Property Coin.
Just like Property Coin.
Yeah.
So we're quite experienced at doing this, and our CTO is a guy who's built enterprise data and loan and property inventory management systems for some of the largest investment banks in the world. So we built a system, we built a team that's really, really primed for highly accelerated growth. We just need operating capital and growth capital in order to do that.
So I want to emphasize something there. So it's kind of like, most ICOs relate to, somebody's trying to raise funds so as to build out a product or a system or a service. And this is a very key differentiator between us and those projects, is that we already have this, we already have our business. Property Coin is, a discreetly managed pool of capital that helps, is deployed in accordance with our core strategies to grow the business and to allow the coin buyers to share in the success of what we do. Maybe before getting into the economics of Property Coin, I want to share some of the images. So just to help people understand what we're doing. So literally, you can take something.
Page 3.
Okay. So we can, here's an example of a kitchen that's visible right now, before and after. These are actual homes that we have flipped. And I'm going to go down. Here's some others. You can see, significant damage, and then, clean up to a beautiful pool, and, something like this as well. So this kitchen isn't in disrepair, but it's just old. So a cosmetic update can increase the desirability and value of that property. And here's a fun one where this is a home owned by Property Coin. This is Property Coin Genesis House. We used some of the initial proceeds raised to acquire a property in Dallas, and it was boarded up and vandalized. And you can see kind of the before pictures on the left and the corresponding after pictures on the right. So this property is now complete and is listed for sale. So this is actual work of an actual Property Coin property that we bought because we think it's an attractive investment. Anything else you want to add about that?
No. So we will jump into Property Coin now. So as Matt mentioned, Property Coin is a discrete pool of capital that we're going to use to buy fix and flip properties and write fix and flip loans. And the way it works is we're going to take 95% of the proceeds from the sale. 5% will be used to cover expenses, legal, marketing, all that good stuff. And the rest will be used to actually buy those houses and write those loans. Once those properties liquidate, and typically a property, from time of acquisition to time of sale takes about 6 months. We're going to reinvest all of the original capital, but also all of the profits that are owned by the tokenomics. It goes the other way. Okay. Tokenomics, the token holder community. And so by doing that, we really wanted to create a coin that was hopefully stable. First and foremost, stable in the fact that it owns real estate and is the underlying value should be loosely tied to the value of that underlying real estate and loans.
We're gonna communicate to help do that. We're gonna communicate to the community every month, investor reporting. So What we mean by that is we're going to show you a handful of homes in process. We're going to talk about the quantity of homes and loans owned, and the rest of the money that's not deployed into actual houses and loans will be in a bank account or in some unsold coins. So we're going to share that as reporting every month and tell you the community what the value of those assets is per coin. So for example, right now when we're selling the coin for $3 a coin, the funds collected are just sitting in a bank account and the value of the coin is $3 a coin. That will change over time as we sell projects and hopefully are making money. That's the goal. So as those projects make money, the value of the coin will increase.
Right. And so that's the second piece of it is, aside from providing a stable value, we hope to provide a natural upward pressure on price. We're hoping that it's not subject to the wild fluctuations of the cryptocurrency market. Obviously, that's, nobody can say that either way whether or not that's going to happen. But what we want to do is hopefully create a natural floor that keeps rising. So by reinvesting all of those profits, the per token price should over time increase if we've done our job correctly. And it's important to note too, I forgot to mention it, and we have it in our deck here, but our system sees over 3,000 houses a day. So we literally do not have enough capital to invest in all of the excellent opportunities that we see every day. But on the properties that we have invested, we've been doing that with our own money because we wanted to test the system. We wanted to do it before going live with a full-on capital raise. We've earned an unlevered return of right around 50%, just north of 50%, which is phenomenal. In the crypto world, maybe that's not so sexy, but in the real world and in property acquisitions, I can tell you that that's a really good unlevered return.
Yeah, we also and think about this. So this is for us the merger of all of our career experience, which is I think a unique thing in the space, right? So Andrew and I've been working on asset-backed, securities backed by real estate assets since 2001. And so we bring all that experience to the table. We bring all the best practices from that to what we're doing with Property Coin. Not only that, but the 25 plus years of building real estate technology out, and the company that already exists and needs growth capital for its real estate business. It's kind of for us the perfect storm, and we're excited to be able to offer this coin for sale.
Yeah, and so third piece of it is. The beauty of the blockchain and the decentralized networks is that, if you tried to invest in a fix and flip or a fix and flip loan fund in the United States right now, it's nearly impossible. You'd have to have millions of dollars and know the right people, and B, the liquidity of that on the back end is limited. The ability for you to buy into a Blackstone fund and then sell out of it, or a Angelo Gordon fund and sell out of it is limited. So what we've done is we've set up partnerships with some of the largest exchanges out there in the security token market, and we talk about it a little bit on the previous page. This was made before we announced our partnership with Open Finance, but we are going to be listed on T0. We're obviously live on Swarm. And we're also going to be up and running on Open Finance hopefully soon. So we want to be able to allow people all over the world to buy into this asset class. And if they like the liquidity, great. If they don't like the liquidity, if they like the trade, great. And they want to stay in it. If they don't like the trade for whatever reason they want to get out, there will hopefully be liquidity in the form of open trading. And we've also actually established a liquidity reserve. So 5% of the total assets will be held for liquidity reserve every month, and there'll be an active buy order by us on one of these exchanges to hopefully facilitate that. We'd love for the community to be trading it back and forth, but we will hopefully, and we will attempt to stand by behind this trade and be there as a liquidity provider too.
So I just want to compare and contrast a little bit of what Property Coin versus look, other ICOs or Bitcoin or Ether investment, I mean, I guess I have to accept Ether out of it, but because Ether can actually do something, right? So property coin, the intention of property coin, the sole purpose of property coin is to use to invest in something, and the profits from those investments are owned by the community. That's a pretty unique proposition. I also think, in terms of what the market value is and the market value fluctuations, obviously, look, there's quite a lot of volatility of standard coins, and the value of those coins is driven based on market's perception of the value. And we think that property coin provides a little bit of a different value proposition in that we are telling everyone on a monthly basis what the value of the assets owned per coin is, and that should go up naturally. So from our perspective, it's intended to be a lower risk. We believe it's a lower risk than many other crypto investments, with also that natural price appreciation expectation.
Yeah. So, Sam, you're going to say something?
Well, yeah, I mean, sorry for interrupting, but I think that's the point you guys are making is really important here. And going back to your point about 50% returns in crypto, not being that much, but I guess what Swarm is doing and what you guys are offering are investments, as you said, that are actually backed by real world assets. And so, when you're investing in Bitcoin or other crypto, as you say, most of that price is speculative, and of course, because of that, you're seeing much higher volatility. But for anyone who wants to diversify their portfolio and back out of some of that volatility, investments in real world assets using crypto has not been possible before. And property and real estate, and especially projects like yours, are an incredible way for all types of investors to be able to diversify and participate in these opportunities that have previously not been available. So I think that's a really important point to stress about what you guys are doing. Why is it new? Why hasn't this been possible before for most people?
Right. Yeah, exactly. And that's one of the things that we think is most intriguing and innovative about this, is that this asset class has not even been available to traditional investors, and now blockchain is allowing it to be, and it's allowing it to be liquid. And so we're extremely excited about the possibility of putting not only real world assets on the blockchain and allow it to be tradable, but an asset class within that otherwise has not been available to even large-scale institutional investors, let alone kind of everyday investors across the world.
Yeah, there is if you know where to find it, and if you have enough money, you can invest in loans backed by investment properties. We don't know of another way to directly invest in the investment properties in the way that we're doing it.
Right.
That's in and of itself pretty unique, because this offering is the only opportunity to own some of the economics of a fix and flip investment portfolio.
Right. So I will. That's kind of it in terms of the overview of Aperture and Property Coin. I'll stop sharing so we can see our beautiful faces. Mm-hmm. But I guess, Sam, do we want to do some Q&A, and we can just kind of go back and forth, however you want to handle it. We're happy to do that.
Yeah, thanks guys. That was great. We've got a few questions coming in on both Zoom and Facebook, and I have a few myself. We talked briefly about comparing and sort of contrasting what you guys are doing and REITs. Is this something that you feel investors should sort of understand the differences between, because REITs are available or have been an existing investment opportunity, but they're not quite the same and perhaps more restrictive than what you guys are mentioning? Is that something we should?
Yeah, sure. I mean, part of it is good question. I think part of it relates to the form of liquidity. So there's private REITs and there's public REITs, and if somebody invested in a private REIT, it's not going to have very good liquidity. If you invest in a public REIT, on the stock market, then that's kind of analogous to what we're doing. And that said, I think that the product types are different. So what those REITs own typically are residential mortgage loans, commercial loans, commercial buildings, and so it's a different type of exposure. So product type, and then from our perspective, the coin nature of the liquidity function we thought was very interesting, and so that's why we elected to pursue this format versus a traditional REIT format. Right. Yeah.
Great. We've got a question here from Fred. What percentage of your business is driven by fixing low-income housing versus the higher-end properties?
Most of it. So one of the things that we like to do is focus on the kind of, I'll call it most liquid price point of any given market. So it's basically your either starter home or move up home for families or kind of local people. But one of the things that we really focused on was let's go to affordable markets and go to places that had not seen like huge macro economic impacts in the last crash. And so we spent a lot of time kind of developing those markets in which we operate, but we're not going after the $5 million house on the side of the hill in Beverly Hills. We're going after the solidly middle market asset that has the most buyers available. And so that's intentional, right? Because we want to be if there is a downturn or if there is a wild upswing, we want to be kind of in that stable part of the market. We don't want to be affected on either end by the much more broad macroeconomic impacts.
Yeah, so we're trying to not only be in markets that have price stability, but trying to be at a price point where our houses are still desirable to a large portion of the audience. So I don't think we have a house for sale that's over $300,000.
Not right now.
I think this leads into potentially the next question, which is actually a three-part question. Firstly, the first part is asking whether you're fully regulated as a security token, and I believe the answer to that is yes, as long as you're offering it to in the US accredited investors.
Yeah, I'll step in real quick on that one and say. Fully regulated is kind of a misnomer. Unless you file an S1 and you're a publicly listed company and trading, then you have to go by what's called an exemption. And so we're going under Reg D, which is an exemption to that. So calling it fully regulated, it kind of doesn't jive because you don't ever get like a statement from the SEC saying you are fully regulated. But we have gone down the proper paths and one of the things I probably should have talked about earlier was we've actually engaged Dentons, which is one of the largest law firm in the world. And just so happens that the team that Matt and I have worked with our entire careers on structuring asset-backed transactions is now focusing on, ICOs, crypto, STOs. And so we feel really comfortable having them on board. And we've gone through the process of creating this as a fully hopefully compliant Reg D offering.
Yeah, so it's Reg D in the US, so US only accredited investors can participate, and then Reg S outside. So when we say, just to check some of the boxes, are we a security token? Yes, and we spend a lot of time and a lot of money with a very expensive and the largest securities law firm in the world to help navigate this pathway. I see that the question goes on to ask, are we thinking about a second security token offering? Interesting question. It's something we've kind of talked about because, we think that the total universe of capital that we can spend on these assets is probably larger, or we know it's larger than the amount of money that we're planning to raise in property coin. So it's kind of, I would say that's a 18-month away thing to think about. We want to be primarily, we want to spend all of our time and energy right now on making sure that, property coin is first successfully sold, all the money successfully deployed, and that we are making profitable trades and everybody's happy. Once everybody's happy and we've proven ourselves, then I think we start thinking about whether to issue a second one. And you also asked about rentals. So I think the answer to that is our primary business is flipping houses because we like the economics of flipping houses. We also write loans because we kind of think about loans as the lower risk, lower return business, that segment. And so we can overweight loans if we're kind of nervous about markets. One other thing is that, look, we see from time to time very interesting rental opportunities. And if we see a very interesting rental opportunity that we think is a good long-term hold, we will consider acquiring that inside property club. That's not our primary business, but what we do is opportunistically look for properties using our proprietary technology. If something really jumps out at us, it looks super attractive, we're gonna give it some thought.
And perhaps that leads into another question. You mentioned that most of the properties that you guys fix and flip are sort of in that middle range. Can you talk about some of the social benefits perhaps that Property Coin provides in that regard?
Sure. Yeah, so I mean, if you saw that picture on the screen when we did the share, that was, that house had been boarded up for a while. I mean, a matter of like years maybe. I don't know specifically on that one, but we have done a house where the house was condemned. A tax lien was put on it by the city. Completely boarded up. Couldn't get in there. Kids were vandalizing it, loitering on the property. It had become a nuisance. But for us, that's the kind of perfect house, right? Because we can come in, we buy it at a discount, we fix it up, we make it a nice home for a family to come in and live there, and we've done good by that community. So we oftentimes have neighbors come up to us or write us a letter when they find out who bought it and flipped it, and they say, thank you so much, this is great. So it provides that benefit. First and foremost, the blighted up nuisance house in the block is fixed and looks nice. So that provides kind of an aesthetic appeal. You get a new taxpayer in there for the city. But then also you've employed people in that community. So we employ contractors, brokers, kind of local vendors. We've kind of pumped money into that economy.
Yeah, if you think about that, operating at scale of 50 houses a year in one city, that's impactful to that city, and it serves to increase access to affordable housing, which we kind of talk about more in the white paper. But there's been a shortage of all home construction in the last kind of 10 years. Affordable homes have been a much smaller component of that relative to the total, or relative to what's needed in the marketplace. So we almost think about this as providing a social benefit of creating affordable housing, and most of the time the homes that we're selling are less than the cost of building a new one. Mm-hmm. So it only makes sense to repurpose these assets, but not a lot of people are doing it.
Thanks, guys. Yeah. We have another question here on Facebook from a user with the name Pet Eyes or something similar, which is great. What was the driving motivation for you to work with Swarm, given that there are others in the space?
Oh, God, we've been speaking with everybody at Swarm for a long time. I think the community was a big one for us. Swarm community is an active and vibrant one on Telegram and other areas, and I think just generally the concept of what they were talking about all along, which is bringing real world assets and venture to the blockchain and make it tokenized, is kind of just right in line with how we were thinking about this thing the whole time. From our perspective, when we really started to dig in on this project back in June, July of last year, we really didn't see anybody doing this yet. I mean, we hadn't yet run into the Swarm team, but nobody was talking about really putting assets on the blockchain and asset-backed securities on the blockchain in a way that we thought was appropriate. And so, as we got to know the team at Swarm, we are very impressed with everybody over there, and very happy to be working with these guys.
Yeah, I think we have a philosophical overlap, and we want to, we agree with what they're trying to accomplish, and they're supportive of what we're trying to accomplish. So as a natural partnership, and they've been great, super easy to work with.
Yeah, I would totally agree. I think we've had a lot of feedback about sort of the ethos, and messaging that Swarm is putting out there, and I think a lot of projects, a lot of investors have approached us after sort of finding out about that. There is a community element that's not accidental. It is intentional. It is important to maintaining and increasing the value of the entire network. And I think we're only starting now to see the network effects of having multiple investment opportunities, even those working together, and being connected by a strong community. So it's, needless to say, it's great to have you guys on board. And as we know, we definitely do share a similar perspective on what blockchain technology can bring, and especially in the investment space, and being able to sort of offer that more broadly. So we're really happy to sort of all be charging down that road together, I guess. Something interesting you guys mentioned is that you sort of you scan or peruse 3,000 potential investments per day. What's the sort of the technology that you guys use to do that, and what's the strategy? I mean, you talked a little bit about how you pick the investments. What's the strategy in sort of finding the ideal target investments?
I'm going to let Matt answer this one because he yells at me whenever I give away our secret sauce.
Okay, yeah, without sharing anything to proprietary.
It's a good question, and it's kind of fun. I mean, this is what we this is one of the things we've worked really hard on, and so we we're proud of it, but we don't want to tell the world exactly how it works. But
suffice it to say, is it does not exist anywhere else. We built this thing custom. This is the genesis of this company. We had these ideas and left to do this.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, it's good. This is the look. It's basically from our perspective about we have a guy who's our partner Rudy, who's extremely talented at buying and fixing, repairing houses.
He's got a team too.
Yeah.
A team of people doing
right.
this.
There's several people on staff helping in that process. We want to make sure that those guys have their time is well spent, right? So we're trying to help those guys be efficient. We're trying to look for opportunities in the market, and that's kind of on the basis of that, we are intending to build a business that can do repeatable trades at scale across many markets, because that doesn't really exist. It exists at really 2 companies that Andrew and I can think of. And so we want to be the third one, and we want to make good investment returns for ourselves and our investors, and build a company off of it.
And so everybody knows the scope of this, right? We're talking, those 2 companies that are doing billions of dollars of this a year. So that's the scale with which we are thinking about this. And when Matt said, we see endless number of possibilities every day, and we just don't have enough capital to do it. We're doing 50 million right now, but could we put 200 million to work? Absolutely. That's not a problem. We've seen this business run at scale. We've ran it at scale. We know how to do it, but we're trying to be measured and thoughtful in our growth. And it's just the market the crypto market right now is not doing the $200-300 million raises that it was last summer. So, right. We'll do what we say we're going to do, and we'll come back, and like you said, in 18 months and hopefully raise another one. But the goal of this is to be a large scale institutional investor across the United States.
I think what I like as well is that you guys are being conservative. You know, you're not over promising. You're taking a sort of a solid approach, and I think that's something that's really important in the crypto space. As you know, we all try and build trust. You know, amongst potential investors and the entire audience. So I think that's really important. We have a question here that was provided during the week by a member of the community. We put out a call for questions on Telegram, and this was one of the ones that came through. You mentioned in your investment offering that 100% of the profits from property and loan investments will be reinvested in new properties and loans with the in new properties and loans with the intent of creating a natural upward pressure on the value of property coin. Can you explain this in a little more detail about how that mechanic works?
Yeah, sure. So let's just talk from an example of where we are right now. Let's just say the value of we've just completed the sale of property coin. We have money sitting in a bank account, and that money sitting in the bank account is $3 per coin. And so what we're going to do is deploy that money to buy properties, to fix up those properties, you know, to pay taxes, those sort of things. And then, you know, within about a 6-month period, on average, those properties will start to liquidate. And the properties that we've invested in them because we think that they will make money. And so now let's just say, for example, you know, whatever profit is received, and I should have probably used exact numbers, but whatever profit is received. So we're going to get now, because those trades are profitable, we get all of our money back, the original $3 per coin, and we get a profit back. And so now we utilize that profit as kind of new money that's available to make additional investments. So now we can go out and buy just as many houses with the original money, plus additional houses with the new money. And, you know, at the time that the sales are made and the profit is realized, we will, in that monthly report, tell everyone that the value of your coin has gone from, let's say, $3 to $3.20. And each month, as there's additional liquidations and new information to report, the reporting will kind of end with a summary that says, here is the dollar value of each coin.
And that's a good question and a good point. There was another question that actually touched on this point as well. And I think you've answered it. The question was, is the value of the token tied to the success of the fund? In other words, will the token be tradable, or is it deriving its value from speculators? And I think what you've explained here is, obviously it can be both. Being tradable, you know, there's obviously going to be, or potentially going to be, some speculative investing. But as you guys report the value of the fund in total, of course, the number of tokens out in the wild stay the same, and you know that obviously will increase the value, the inherent underlying value of the coin itself, and then anything above that, it will obviously be potentially speculator driven. But fundamentally, being an asset-backed security token, we're obviously talking about the value being fundamentally derived from the value of the assets that you're managing in your fund.
That's how we think about it as well. So if we reach a stage now, let's just say the coin is $4 a token, we have obviously moved the valuation from $3 to $4, and so we've told everyone that that's occurring. Should the coin trade for $4? In theory, if everybody trades on perfect information, the value should be based on that $4. So would somebody pay a little bit more than $4 because of the expectation of additional future profits? Or would they pay less than $4 for some reason? I'm not sure what the reason for that would be, but yes, so we can't control what the market actually does, but the market should take into account the information that we're telling everyone, which is it's $4 right as of right now, and they should also kind of be thoughtful around their own views of what they think the future pricing will be.
Of course, and as with any investment, it's do your own research, and as you say, if investors feel like there is an upside to the opportunity, and and have faith in you guys and your track record, then there are obviously going to be expectations that will affect the price in that front. There's a question here which is probably more a little bit technical. Someone was trying to get a grip on sort of some of the mechanics. They say if you issue a token and raise, say, $50 million, then you have $50 million to put into your business or fund. Then they go on to say, if in 1 month the price of the token will rise by 3 times, does that mean you'll have $150 million on hand to buy property? I'll explain this. Or Andrew, do you want to talk about a little bit about that, or?
Yeah. So the dollar amount that we have to spend is based on the initial raise. Obviously, there's going to be some, if we receive crypto or if we receive cash, there'll be some market fluctuation during the time of which we have to get that to US dollars. Yeah. Unfortunately, real estate in the US still can't be traded with crypto, so we do have to pull it into fiat. Yeah. But the way it works is once we close the sale, that dollar amount that whatever it is, $50 million, say it's $50 million, that's what we have to spend on real estate. So in the previous example, we would hope that in a month's time that the value doesn't go to 3x, because that would mean that there's this dislocation and it's purely speculative. But I mean, obviously that could happen, but the pot of money that we will have to use is that $50 million. And it's, one other thing I heard in that question was you'll be able to put that into your business. That doesn't go into our business. It's really important that people understand that. That money is used to purchase assets, and those token holders own those assets. If something ever happened to Aperture and we had to liquidate the property, all the underlying properties, those monies would go back to the token holders. They own the rights to that. Yeah. We don't own it as, we own it because we own some tokens, but we don't own it as the company. It's the token holders' money, and it's their assets.
The token holders' property. If we in 10 years said, hey, we're bored of making all this money in property coin, and let's wind it down, we would literally sell every property that it's owned and tell everybody, hey, let's come back and make sure we know who you are so we can KYC and AML you and give you your money back. That money does not belong to us. It belongs to the community.
That's a really important point that applies to all the investment opportunities on Swarm, and something that we maybe don't talk about enough. Swarm is facilitating or connecting the investment opportunities with investors, and the same applies to Swarm. So once an investor sort of allocates funds to an opportunity, there is a legal relationship between the investor and the fund itself. And if Swarm, the platform, the blockchain, the organization disappeared the next day, that relationship is maintained with all the legal obligations that you would have as a typical investor. So you're not, when you're investing in property coin, you're not doing that you're doing it on the Swarm platform, but Swarm is not a middleman in this scenario, and your relationship is maintained using based on the token sale agreement that is available for all investors to read, and that is part of the investing contract, I guess. So thanks for clearing that up, because that's a really good question, and I think something that sort of a fine point that a lot of people in the community wonder about occasionally.
Let me just add, just to make sure people understand the mechanics. So if that value of that coin goes to $4, $5, wherever it goes over time, and so we only ever have the original 50 million plus the profits that are earned to spend on stuff. That, let's just say the movement from $3 to $5, that is economics or profit owned by the coin buyer. So when the coin buyer sells it, they receive 5 for the thing that they spent 3 on. That we don't we wouldn't receive that money. We can't use that money to buy assets.
Thanks, guys. The next question here is a good one. Is there any need for crypto funding if PCX or Property Coin is simply funding its traditional real estate business? And are there any unique technological developments that PCX would help make to the existing crypto world, which I think you've kind of partly touched on? But perhaps that first part of that question, what is the need for crypto funding if you're funding traditional real estate investments?
I think it's big. It's more of like blockchain as a use case, right? It's not, is there a need for this? Can we go and raise regular way money? Yes, we can. We see blockchain technology as an incredible tool for the expansion and the growth and the innovation in the structured products world. And that's why we're doing this. This is a new way for companies to fund themselves. And we, we kind of, look, we are a very technologically based company in and of itself. Like, forget Property Coin. Aperture is using technology and data in a way that I've never seen being done in the real estate space. So, why shouldn't we go and kind of innovate in this side of the world as well? So, look, I think what the technological advances that we're bringing are as a use case, not necessarily as a new technology. This is not a new blockchain. This is not a new smart contract. This is very simple. If you give us money, we give you back a coin, and that represents your ownership in our real estate ownership entity, right? And so that token is innovative because it can be traded, and we're giving people access to our investment platform via that token. And so that in and of itself as a use case is innovative. But in terms of a new blockchain or a new kind of advancement on the underlying tech, it is not. And we're not trying to claim to be, but we do think this is really, really innovative in terms of tokenizing assets and tokenizing securities on the blockchain and making them much more liquid, tradable, and accessible to the masses.
Yeah, and we think, we're one of the early use cases of this occurring. So we think down the road, proper capital markets application. So a lot of the coin raises are because somebody wants to build a specific product. They want to build an ecosystem that people can participate in. We think that over time, there's going to be a larger and larger use case or examples of people saying, I have a company, I want to sell 10% of my company. And if I don't raise, $2 million, then the trade is canceled. So that sort of thing, I think, will be very prevalent in the future. And so we're just an early example of that. From our perspective, selling Property Coin as a means of raising money allowed us to speak to a different audience, interact with a different audience, and allow a different audience to participate in our investments in a way that we thought was complementary and mutually beneficial. And so we're happy to have gone down this path. I do want to add one thing that we're working on and will do is blockchain-based investor reporting. So not only will we be one of the very few ICOs to issue any form of investor reporting at all, we're going to tell everybody what we think the value of the assets are per coin, and we're going to do that on the blockchain. So that's a work in process right now, but we have a high degree of confidence in the feasibility of that build out, and we're going to do it.
That's really cool. One of the features that we feel is going to be really important in the security token space down the road is the ability for token holders or owners of these funds and investment opportunities to have a say. And there's an important governance function that being a owner or holder of security tokens allows. It may be a little premature, but have you guys given some thought as to the types of decisions or the types of issues that token holders in Property Coin might be able to voice their opinion on, perhaps on strategy, on return structures or other things like that?
So I'll say one thing, because I'm pretty sure I know what Matt's going to say, but I think before, we thought about it initially at first and kind of backed off on offering that initially, really because we want to be the professional in the seat. So what we thought of was like, hey, you have the ability to choose this, what kinds of properties we're investing in or where we want to be. And as much as we really like that idea, I think the whole thesis is that the investors are relying upon our experience and our expertise and our team's ability to find the best trades out there. And so we said, you know what, we're not going to do that right now. And then I think I know where you were going with it. But
yeah, there's a couple possibilities. Like for instance, like, hey, property coin community, we see an opportunity to buy apartment buildings. Do you guys want to do that in property coin? Or if not, we're going to issue property coin number 2. And it's like that. Or hey, everybody, property coin sold 50 million and now we have 75 million. We think the market opportunity is 200 million. Should we sell more shares of property coin, or should we do property coin number 2? Those sort of like big strategic issues that the community should have a voice in are kind of where I was thinking.
Yeah, and so where we thought about it initially was like offering the properties for sale or for like individual investments in specific properties. That kind of brought up a potential fiduciary issue for us, and where we were not making the decisions on behalf of the community, and so we wanted in that role and and have our professionals doing it.
Or there's another fun kind of like just hypothetically we can say, hey, we bought a 200 unit apartment building because we thought it was a fantastic deal. P.S. If you own property coins and you want to own part of this 200 million or the 200 unit apartment building, you can come buy part of it from property coin. So there might be fun things like that in the horizon, but that's kind of once everything, focus number 1 is get it done, get it executing, and then we get to have more fun with things like that.
I think investors completely understand that. Obviously, I don't think investors are expecting to sort of micromanage, individual deals or even have a say on a regular or daily basis. But it's those kind of sort of high-level strategic, decisions or opinions that you guys could, call upon the community to be involved in, and potentially, access to, additional types of access to the properties that special types of opportunities that you might be able to offer to the community of token holders. So thanks for being upfront about that. I think that's really important.
Yeah, and it's something that we value. It's just, right now we want to focus on doing our job and doing it well, and that's kind of like the next phase.
Yeah. I think another thing that is important to cover is sort of the risks associated with any type of investment opportunity.
Sure.
Do you want to talk a little bit about the risks that are associated specifically with property coin as you've identified them, to give sort of investors a fuller picture of what they're getting into?
I mean, first and foremost, I will certainly get an angry phone call from our lawyer if I didn't say, please go to our offering document and read the risks, because they're very detailed in there. And one of the things that we learned as investment bankers was make sure everybody knows the risks and do your own research and read the documents before you invest.
We may also be one of the only ICOs or STOs to have a PPM.
Yeah.
We do have a PPM with probably 20 pages of our lawyers telling everyone what can go wrong. So so I agree.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell the community what a PPM is? Maybe not everyone is
sure.
quite clear what that is.
It's because we're offering a private security. It's called a private placement memorandum. So basically, it outlines 4 or 5 pages of the structure, all of the mechanics, and then, like Matt said, I think there's like 20-something pages of like, you could lose all your money. Here's all the ways in which it could happen. Be warned, and protects us, protects the investors. It's just kind of commonplace in traditional securities world.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, look, so just to highlight a couple of things, and Andrew might think of others, but with you kind of take on some of the risks inherent in crypto in general. So, which is that market value may change, and may change significantly, may change for reasons you don't understand, and you may lose money because of that. You know, I will say, in my opinion, with a lot of crypto, even notwithstanding that we're on Swarm, we're on 2 other exchanges, we have a liquidity reserve. I think that people need to be thoughtful about how they will sell and will there be a willing buyer, and I think that that's inherent across all crypto. The other thing is, look, we bear some real estate risk, right? Because, or we bear a lot of risk to the real estate market because the proceeds are used to buy real estate. So if there were a material negative change in home prices, then that could cause losses to Property Coin's portfolio, or would be expected to cause losses to Property Coin's portfolio. So, I mean, those are kind of a few things that come to mind.
And you're taking on the risk that we know what we're doing and that we've made strong and appropriate decisions on the houses that we invest in. So, you know, did we overspend on rehab? Did we underestimate the time with which it was going to take? You know, all of those things are built into our analysis of the properties, but as an investor, you have to kind of know and appreciate and understand whether or not you think we are capable and able to do what we say we're going to do.
Yeah, this is kind of like, think about this. It's not like, you know, if we, if we're a very basic company that makes a product for price X, sells a product for price Y every single time, and it's fairly static what those price X and Y are because, you know, we make t-shirts or whatever. That's an almost easier to understand business model than when we buy a house. You have to estimate a few things. Notably, how much will it cost to fix it? And how much will it sell for? And how long will that take? And so that's a judgment call. And so we hope to be right more often than we're wrong. And that's the goal. But that, as Andrew said, that's what comes into play is like, you know, we can run into errors.
Yeah. And look, I don't, not to get super scary on everybody, but we think we've built a really interesting piece of technology that allows us to manage these far more efficiently than we've seen done in the past. And so, you know, like I said, I hope that everybody will go to our website, read the offering document, look into us, look at our LinkedIn backgrounds, look at the videos that we've posted online, and, you know, see that we are a real company and we've spent our own money in building this thing. You know, we have outside investors, but it's, you know, most of it comes from us.
I'm laughing because this is like the very lengthy answer to the risk factor question that only like a lawyer or an investment banker would tell you. But that's you know, we want everybody who's a participant in the project to really understand what they're involved with.
Yeah, and I think everyone really appreciates you guys being upfront, and I think that's one of the benefits of, you know, these type of interactions and having community involvement and making the community feel like they can reach out to the investment managers, which is, you know, really never been possible before, and that's something that we're so excited about enabling. And I think to add to your points, one of the other benefits is sort of the way to, you know, the ability to manage one's risk. Obviously, all investors have different risk and return profiles, and, you know, being able, you know, to sell and trade and have liquidity in the token allows people to feel more comfortable investing because they're not committed for 3, 5, 10 years in an investment that, you know, may change over time, or their personal situation may change over time, causing them to sort of reassess their, you know, their portfolio or how they've diversified their investments. And so that's one of the, you know, incredible benefits that the security token revolution is and blockchain is bringing. So, but, you know, regardless, we appreciate, obviously everyone appreciates you guys outlining the risks and being upfront about them, and your detailed response.
No, you brought up an interesting point that I wanted to throw out there. by virtue of this being a tradable coin, it will behave differently in the scenario where you said, somebody's personal situation changed, right? If somebody's personal situation changed and they had to redeem a traditional fund, they'd get haircut significantly. They'd lose some value in terms of their investment. But it would also be harmful to the actual fund. That call on capital would cause potentially forced selling and at a price that would be detrimental to the fund. Versus in our scenario, there's hopefully other people who are willing to and interested in getting into that position in the fund, so that hopefully there's a seamless transaction
Right.
to cause us to have to force liquidate properties at the detriment of all of the holders. So it's really been, I think, beneficial from our perspective as being able to operate, having a stable cash foundation, but also for the market participants in terms of their liquidity in having that flexibility of being able to get in and out depending on their situation.
Yep, thanks for making that very important point. That's really great to get across. Well, we've gone over the hour already, believe it or not. Time flies. I think we've run through all, if not at least most, but I believe all of the community questions. If we haven't covered yours, I apologize, but of course you're always able to get in touch with Andrew and Matt either via the Swarm Telegram channel, via the community discussion platforms on Swarm, and obviously I think you guys have your own Telegram group, which we have promoted in Telegram, and we can put the link to that in your investment opportunity. You guys are great at always, you're very on top of sort of questions from the community. So if you do have any follow-up questions, I'm sure the guys will be happy to answer. Anything you want to leave us with, guys, before we finish up?
No, just thanks for taking the time to understand the project and ask good questions, and thanks to the Swarm team for hosting us. Be happy to, as Sam mentioned, address follow-ups on Telegram, and maybe even a future call if there was enough kind of interest.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yeah, and I'll just kind of close it out with saying, look, we're here to build a community and build a business. And I think a lot of people get nervous in the ICO world with, is this company going to survive, and are they going to make it, and is this product going to survive? Our product works, our team is in place, and we're ready to go. This is a growth capital thing for us, so we want to be as forward and transparent as possible, and tell people, like, we've got big plans for this thing. This isn't just a small ecosystem we're talking about. We have really big plans for this, and we are thankful and grateful to the community for helping us achieve those goals. So anybody who has questions or wants to get in touch with us, please feel free. All the social channels, etc., are available, and we will attempt to answer your questions as quickly as possible.
Yeah, thanks.
Great. So come along and check out Property Coin and join the community of investors there. It's definitely one of the most exciting coins that we have or investment opportunities on the platform. And thanks again, guys, for your time, and for all watching. Join us next week. We do have another webinar in this series, and looking forward to speaking with you guys soon. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.